On December 20 of 2025, I did a podcast called Clarity and Corrections. The subject and the purpose of the podcast was to clarify and to correct certain things in my book that came out 10 years ago called John Courtney Murray, Time, Life, and the American Proposition. As a result of publicizing this on X, within about 3 days, I was falsely accused of having been called in by the CIA. Now, what exactly does that mean, called in by the CIA? Well, if you do a Google AI search, it means that you're made an asset of the CIA. Though I believe the way that this false allegation was made is such that I was either bribed or threatened to say certain things. So I want you to know that no one has called me in. The CIA has not bribed or threatened me. No government has bribed or threatened me. No individual, no person anywhere has called me in or bribed or threatened me, make me an asset, or to say certain things or not say certain things. What I say on my own. I own. I say what I say after study, research, thought, prayer. The same thing with my writing, the same thing with my posting. So let's get into it. The text that came to me on December 23rd with this false accusation came from an account called Two Cities Podcast Vendee Radio. That's Theo Howard. He lives in England, and I'll talk about him a little later. He said, quote, please say a prayer for David Wemoff, who wrote one of the most incisive books on the pernicious influence of Americanism at Vatican II, and was a great advocate for the union of the church and civil power. According to Dr. Jones, E. Michael Jones, he was then called in by the CIA. Who knows what they bribed or threatened him, or threatened? May he once again see the light. Now, the post that I had posted and was reposted with this comment from Howard is the following. And this was a post I put out December 20th on X Twitter promoting this podcast of Clarity and Corrections. I said many things are clarified and explained. America and the church are fellow travelers, with the liberal order the model of social organization. The Catholic confessional state cannot work because the church becomes an instrument of oppression. End of quote. Did the CIA or anybody call me in? No. I have asked for a retraction of this lie, and neither Howard nor Jones have retracted it. Okay, so let's get into what's going on. Furthermore, to make a claim that Trump's CIA, Trump's government, would call me in to say the things that I put in my post and in my podcast is ludicrous. I mean, it made me laugh when I saw it. The people making this false accusation don't know the situation. They don't know what's going on. Trump's government's filled with Christian nationalists, theocrats, MAGA Catholics, all sorts of people who want tyranny. And they don't want someone talking about the benefits of the liberal order and the church working with the liberal order. They would not want me saying what I said on December 20th and posting on that same day to advertise the podcast. So the allegations, the lies put forth by Jones and Howard are ludicrous. As not having any relation to reality. Now, I thought about this. There's one possible explanation here that makes sense as I study social media and study a lot of the various trolls and other denizens out there trying to promote a certain message. Okay, um, when Jones and Howard say CIA, they're meaning Jews. Okay, they're meaning the Jews have got to me to talk favorably of the liberal order and of the church working with the liberal order together. So that actually would make some sense if they're talking in code. And so that is one way to explain their lies. Um, the Jews did not get to me. No Jews got to me. Okay. Um, the message it can only make sense then if instead of CIA and the U.S. government, they actually mean Jews. So, what's the significance of all of this? Well, I want to back up a little bit. I mean, it's also a ludicrous position, too, that Jones and Howard are putting out because the book's been out for more than 10 years. Why did they wait 10 years? Why did they wait 10 years to call me in, which they didn't? it is, it's ridiculous, but um, it reveals something that's going on, and that's what I want to talk to you about. Okay, um, and I wanted to look at the text first of all. Um, so Howard talks about pernicious influence of Americanism at Vatican II. Okay, so right away you can see that there is an interest in discrediting Vatican II. The second thing he says of interest is that I was a great advocate for the union of the church and civil power. No, I never was. That's not true. Union of church and civil power is theocracy. Theocracy always turns out to be oppressive. So, right away, we see in Howard's post this desire to undermine Vatican II and this desire for power. Because when church and state are combined, you have enormous power over people. So I said that I was going to get into the significance of this. I think we can learn a lot. First of all, Jones and Harder have no credibility. Vendee Radio, two cities that got no credibility. They're lying. At best, they don't know what they're talking about. So you really can't trust them. You can't really believe what they're saying. These are people who don't want the truth. They're not scholars. They're polemicists. They're storytellers. They're propagandists. And they're serving somebody's interests here. Now, with Jones, I've already talked about him in a podcast, a couple podcasts ago. He attacks Jews and he encourages Jew hatred because he gets fame and fortune and also advances Russian geopolitical disinformation goals. I believe he is a Russian asset. He could be more. He could be a Russian agent. But he's certainly just a polemicist. He's a storyteller. He has no credibility. And unfortunately, he's poisoning a lot of minds. So Vendee Radio, Two Cities Podcast, Theo Howard, who is he? Well, he's kind of a mystery man. I mean, you look for him on the internet, and there isn't much there. You see some descriptions, very brief of him. He's a freelance writer. He taught catechists, I think, and he lives in England, in London, I believe. If you look at his Facebook page, it's very minimal. There's not much information there. He makes Facebook comments to a mutual friend. I'm not a friend of Howard's on Facebook. The comments he makes on the page of a mutual friend on more than one occasion are clearly Russian disinformation, and they deal with Ukraine. So right away, when you see that, the red flag goes up. Who's this guy working for? Well, I believe Howard is advancing Russian geopolitical interests. He writes for a number of magazines that are known to be, traditional Catholic or neo-trad or Catholic. They put out demoralizing narratives of the West. They attack America. They attack the liberal order. And I'm talking about Crisis, and the editor is Eric Sammons, for whom I have absolutely no respect. The 1 Peter 5 is another one where they talk about monarchy and they attack the liberal order. Catholic Herald, I don't know much about that, and the European Conservative. European Conservatives with Rod Dreher, that clearly promotes anti-EU sentiment. It promotes this international nationalism that I've talked about, which benefits Russian geopolitical goals. My review of European conservatives is that they push anti-Western, anti-American narratives. They attack the liberal order and liberalism. And I haven't seen them do anything that's anti-Russian. They develop Catholicism as a wedge issue, from what I can see, to divide. And all these magazines build upon what I call fairy tale Catholicism. If you just do this, if you just do that, everything will be perfect and you're Catholic. So these are magazines which really are not so much about building unity and community as they are dividing. And so these are people who write for this are birds of a feather. From his articles at 1 Peter 5, Howard writes pro Williamson, pro SSPX, apparently pro Vigano. An article, Cultural Marxism is consistent with liberalism, talks about Reconquista, Christendom. He's talking about power dynamics. Basically, he's using these ideas, as others do, to change the power dynamics. He recently wrote an article in which he said republicanism is bad, monarchy is good. And he writes, in the liberal hegemony, Thomas Molnar wrote that in the three poles which traditionally connect a political community, the temple, the palace, and in the middle of general civil society, were dislocated for the first time in the Anglosphere and most clearly in the liberal United States. End of quote. So this is an attack on the liberal order, an attack on America. And that attack is then used to attack the church if you believe the church has Americanism in it. So this is the development that's going on. I will also note that Howard appears to be friends with this guy, Sebastian Morello, a professor who I have had personal contact with, and he is virulently anti-American. Birds of a feather flock together is an old saying. Now, you can't use that necessarily to get a criminal conviction. I'm not seeking a criminal conviction. But what that phrase is a truism for is that people with similar ideas and similar viewpoints hang together. I think we can all agree with that. If you're a liberal, you want to be with liberals. If you're a conservative, you want to stay with conservative. MAGA, you want to stay with MAGA, so on and so forth. I think it's kind of what you see. And so this gives us an insight into Howard as someone who is anti-American, anti-Vatican II, which supports, again, what I have said earlier, weeks or months ago, that there is a push within the church and within Western societies to discredit, attack America, to discredit, attack Vatican II. And we see that here with Howard and the things he's doing, and with his latest attack on me, his latest lies about me. I realize also, too, that I had a prior run-in with Howard. I did a podcast on January 17, 2025, called Ethnicity, Religion, and Disinformation. And he published this comment, which is still up there. So, quote, 4:30, the time marker was 4:30. I said something. And then he writes, the previously staunch anti-Americanist Catholic author Wemhoff references a Jewish author to say that Catholic monarchs were the worst violators of the international law. Incredible! So I responded, quote, I was referring to John Epstein. I said, quote, John Epstein was an English Protestant who converted to Catholicism. He is one of the most incisive Catholic authors and commentators of the 20th century, and I have referenced him repeatedly in my writings and talks. You don't know what you are talking about. You don't like the ugly truths being told about Putin and the Russians, and so you attack me anonymously. Everybody knows America is far, far better than Russia. We are wise to efforts like yours to demoralize, divide, and spread disinformation. Go away, taking your poison with you, and stay gone. End of quote. So this guy Howard didn't even know who Epstein was. He just thought he was a Jew. And so he attacked me for quoting a Jew. So now it makes sense when he and Jones talk about the CIA, it means Jews. It also, too, you can tell from his comment that he's anti-American. He's anti-American. And he is driven by power dynamics. Religion is to be used as a form of power, a tool, an implement. That's what you take from his comments and from the whole series of things he's written and said. So he's, on a good day, Howard's a moron. He didn't know who John Epstein was. But these are the kind of people who are the propagandists and the polemics in the so-called traditional neo-trad circles in this certain group of Catholics that are unhappy, dissatisfied, filled with grievances. These are the guys leading them. They're idiots. They're filled with hatred and lies. So let's talk about this because they have an agenda. We're seeing too, aside from the dishonesty and the stupidity of Howard and Jones, what we're seeing too is an agenda. Okay, we're seeing ideological warfare being waged against America and the church, against the West. It's being waged by the Russians, and it's a very simple message that liberalism is bad. America is based on liberalism. America is bad. America infected the church. The church is now bad. The church needs to be fixed. And Vatican II has to be thrown out. And the world order has to be thrown out. And America has to be changed. That's the narrative that guys like Howard and Jones and other people are putting out. And of course, all this is because of the Jews. So this is an important narrative. If you are a tyrant or a tech bro or a state leader who wants to control people, because you want to use religion as a form of power. And what the liberal order did is it allowed for cooperation between religion and the state. But it did not employ the church as a tool of repression. Liberalism also, too, recognizes human rights, as does the person. And you've heard me talk about the four Catholic ideas that America has taken and run with, both domestically and internationally, and I have an article up on that. And those four ideas are the primacy of the person, the existence of a community of nations, the importance of the rule of law, and peace as the ultimate goal or purpose of man. These four principles are Catholic principles, and America runs with them. Well, if America's bad, well, then those principles must be bad. So, if America is based on liberalism, and liberalism is bad, then those principles have to be bad. And if Americanism is bad and it infected the church at Vatican II, then Vatican II has to go. Because Vatican II is about what? It's about those four principles. It's about cooperation. It's about working with people. It's about Catholics going out in the world and having their religion motivate them to do good, not using religion as a tool or as a cudgel or a divisive weapon or a wedge issue. So that benefits the tyrants, as I've said. If America is bad because of liberalism, and liberalism created Americanism, and Americanism infected the church at Vatican II, then America and Vatican II are bad. That's a doctrinal warfare. That is doctrinal warfare. And these two are engaged in it. Um, so, so where do we go? So what's the recap? Jones and Howard are liars. On a good day, they're morons. In any event, they're just polemicists. They're propagandists. We're engaged in ideological warfare that is meant to, um, attack the underpinnings of America, to attack Vatican II, and that's to advance the interests of the tyrants who want more power and want to use the church for more power. And then the final takeaway is it is a lie to say that I was in any way by anybody called in. By the CIA, by the government, by anybody. That is a lie. What I say is what I say because of my research, my study, my prayer, my thought, and also belief that if you don't get things right, you got to correct them. And you can always do better. Thank you.